A worker fights off her attacker while making a home visit on Wednesday.
Caseworker was making a home visit when she was attacked by her patient who was living in transitional housing.
Police say a social worker making a house call was attacked by her client.
Hello and welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. I'm Melissa. I'm a licensed clinical therapist based in the state of California. If you're new here, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons because I post content weekly every single Wednesday and Sunday. Subscribing to my channel really helps me get information out there to our communities, as well as information about mental health and behavioral health professions. So what I want to talk about today is safety and the social work profession. So I know at the beginning of every one of my videos, I mentioned that I am a licensed clinical therapist. Specifically though, if you're asking me what my background is, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So as I've mentioned in videos prior, that entailed me going to get my master's degree in social work in graduate school. I'm sure, as you know, and if you're in the social work profession, as you may know as well, the field of social work entails more than just teletherapy or healthcare setting type of social work services. A large portion of social work involves person and environment centered care. And expanding off of person-centered care, we're talking about the environment. So as, again, social workers, we're looking at that main word that's in our profession, right? Social. So we really want to assess our clients or the populations that we're working with in their natural settings. And so that may include going out to meet them where they're at, as opposed to them coming to meet us in our office. So a lot of other professions that are in mental health and behavioral health may be more used to having their clients and their patients coming to them. For example, a lot of psychologists and MFTs, a lot of their patients and clients come to their clinics. And while social workers also have patients and clients come to their clinics as well, there's just been more of a understanding that social workers actually go out to the communities and go into their clients' homes to provide supportive services. So the social workers that go out and provide services in the field may be in several different types of areas that may include child protective services, mental health, community mental health, Department of Mental Health, elderly and aging, hospice care. The list goes on and on with that. So along with that, when we think about providing services in other people's homes and in the community, we are putting ourselves in unfamiliar territory. Because if somebody's coming to our clinic or to our office, we have a little bit more of a safety net in a sense of knowing exactly the geography of the building, the exits, the entrances, you know, who is going to be in an office nearby, things of that nature. So we may be able to control some dangerous or behavior escalating types of scenarios. In the field, unfortunately, when we're going into somebody else's home and we're not too familiar with the environment or who's going to be there, there may be an increased risk of something dangerous happening or being put in a dangerous situation, pretty much. So the question is how do we handle those situations, and how do we make sure that we're not putting ourselves in dangerous positions, or if we can't prevent it, what are some things that we can do to plan ahead of time so that if something does go awry, we can pull these out of our toolbox. So there has been some information on the news about social workers going into homes and sometimes getting assaulted, or even in clinics also being assaulted in that capacity. And so as a helping profession, we want to be able to not only help our clients and provide supportive services to them in a safe way, but we also want to prioritize our safety as well. So today I am going to talk about 3 things that you can do to keep yourself safe in providing field visits or home visits. Now, if you don't know what a field visit is kind of what we refer to our house visits. A lot of social workers use that type of language. So I'm going to go out in the field. That means I'm going to go out and visit some of my clients or visit my patient in their home or something of that nature. Before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of a story and a little bit of self-disclosure. So I used to work in hospice care. I worked in hospice for I want to say almost 3 years, about 3 years, and I really loved the work that I did. And during that time, it was before the pandemic, before COVID, way before. So, I was still doing in-person home visits, obviously visiting my patients that had the prognosis of 6 months or less to live, and also providing services to their families. So whenever I would get a new patient, I would have to visit them in the home and then assess their home setting, if they had enough care, who their caretakers were. And so in this one specific situation, I had gotten a new patient, and as soon as I walked into, it was a huge apartment complex, but as soon as I walked into that apartment complex, I just got a really weird feeling. And I don't know if it had anything to do with anything that I saw. I mean, there wasn't anything in particular that I could point my finger on, but we're actually going to go back to our gut feeling later on after I talk about this story. But I just say this to kind of prepare and lead up to that. So right away, I just had a really weird feeling in my stomach. I still remember it. It was maybe a decade ago that this happened to me, but I still can kind of remember that feeling. And I was still pretty new to the social work field because this was, I think, my second job out of school. So I got to the unit of my patient's home, and again, I had never met my patient before or the family members or anything like that. And the person that answered the door was the adult child of my patient. And, the adult child let me come in. And when I say adult child, I mean son. I just want to make sure that it's known that this person was an adult and over the age of 18. So when I came in, the son was very friendly. He let me go look at the patient, and everything looked good with the patient. The patient was sleeping and resting. Environmentally, everything looked safe, was fairly clean. There was nothing that looked to be kind of out of the ordinary. And so we sat down, and the living room was quite large, and there were several sofas actually. And this was when I knew that something felt like, okay, I'm starting to understand why my gut was feeling a little off. So I sat down on one of the couches, which was more of a love seat because there was like 3 couches. Actually, there's 2 couches, like were very long, and then one love seat, which was much smaller than the couches, obviously. And so I sat down on the love seat thinking like, okay, well, I'm putting my bag here. So, and there's all these other couches. Immediately, the son came and sat really close to me. And there was no personal space. There was just no boundaries with that, which automatically felt very wrong. And so I actually got up and I sat on another couch because, like I said, there was plenty of seating. And him, the patient, and I were the only ones in the apartment unit. There was no other family members there, and I saw because he let me look in the apartment. And so I felt very uncomfortable with that already. And right when I moved to the couch, he actually followed me and sat right next to me. And I'm not even talking about, there's space in between us. He sat up in my shoulder, like he was right next to me. And I was trying to ask him questions without making it seem like I was uncomfortable, because again, at the time, I think that I was just so flooded with discomfort that it was hard for me to even put up my boundaries at that point. And seeing that he followed me, I didn't know what he was capable of doing if I tried to move again. So I just started to ask him my assessment questions about his role as a caretaker, and he was answering them very well. I mean, he seemed to be a very good caretaker to the patient, to his dad, but he started trying to, I don't even want to say make a move on me, because we weren't obviously on a date. But he did try to hold me and maybe even kiss me, because his face was getting so close. And automatically I just felt very, very, like my antennas were up. I felt really scared. And so I got up and I said, you know what, I'm really gonna need a little bit of space. And he refused to give me space and was asking me very personal questions. And it's kind of a blur now, because when you're kind of in that fight or flight mode, you kind of just blank out. And I think that's kind of what happened. And at that point, he was blocking my way from leaving the apartment, and I felt extremely terrified. And so I really tried to de-escalate the situation by trying to talk about things that would make him feel comfortable. And then I was able to somehow transition the conversation that we were having into a resource that I could think about. And I told him that I had it in my car and I really wanted to hook him up with that resource. And so he was like, okay. So then he came with me. He followed me all the way to my car. I said, you can just stay here. I'm going to go in my car and I'm going to get it. And I'll bring it back to you. He refused to leave my side. And to the point where when we left the unit, because he actually finally let me leave, I started walking fast, and he was at that point running to catch up with me. And so I had to run. And he was screaming, he was like, I need to get your phone number. You can't leave until I get your phone number. And he was literally like chasing after me at that point. So again, like I said, this was years ago. And so I may not even tell the story all that detail oriented, because again, I just can't really remember all the details. They're a little bit fuzzy. Anyway, long story short, I was able to get in my car and I got the hell out of there. That's all I can say. And the first thing that I did, I was very emotional. I was very scared. But the first thing that I did was I called my hospice agency that I worked for at the time, and I let them know what happened. And I let them know to not let anybody go there alone, first off. And at that time I said to not let any women go there on their own. And I also let them know I would not be returning back to that home either, because I really felt like that was a very dangerous situation. And I don't remember exactly how my company responded, but I do remember I never went back there. So I was pretty firm about my boundaries on that. And yeah, so now kind of coming out of that, in telling that story, I do think about so many different things. Like, was that preventable? Could I have done anything different? The answer to that question is very complex, because I think there are things that I could have done differently, for sure. But sometimes as people that are doing field visits, we really don't know what we're walking into. And so I thought that would be kind of a good story to segue into this video. So the first tip that I have about conducting a safe home visit would be to first contact the person that you're going to be visiting. So if again, it's a patient or something and they aren't able to speak for themselves, then it's going to be important to talk to their primary caregiver and kind of get a feel, assessing over the phone what they are like. And I mean, it may be easier said than done because, again, when we're talking to somebody on the phone, that's much different than walking into a situation where you don't know what they may be capable of doing. And so, that can be kind of taken with a grain of salt, but definitely not a tip to be ignored. The second tip that I would say would be to try to, if possible, try to meet with your client outside the home. So in this case, in this scenario that I was telling you about, I obviously, one of my roles as the hospice social worker at the time was to go in and assess the environment and assess the home, which it looked safe, the patient looked safe. However, when you do meet with your client, you can always ask to meet right outside the home. So in that case, I could have knocked on the door and asked that person to talk to me briefly outside, and then based on the in-person interaction, then I could make the determination if it would be safe to actually go into the unit alone with that person. And thirdly, the tip that I want to make sure that is not overlooked, that can be definitely overlooked at times, is to trust your gut. So as I mentioned earlier, I had a strong gut feeling, and I think that we sometimes can ignore that gut-wrenching feeling. And I don't speak for everybody, but I can say that I think, and speaking to a lot of my social work colleagues, a lot of the time, we just want to help so much. And so we'll go in hoping to just help the client or the clients, and may put some of that gut feeling to the side for a minute, when really that gut is trying to tell us something and we should definitely listen to it. Those are the main tips that I have for that. I think that more times than none, the experiences that I have had with home visits have been safe and have been pleasant. And so I think that it's really important for people that are going into the field know that it's not all bad and scary and icky. A lot of the time, it's perfectly safe, and we're really making a difference when we go in there and we help our special populations or our community. There are, on the other hand, again, times where we may not know what we're walking into, and so it's always better to be prepared and, again, trust those instincts. And so I guess another tip that I would have would be to make sure that you have an exit plan. So being very hyper aware, no matter how safe you feel, because again, you never know when somebody else may be in the home that's not normally there. So making sure we are very attuned to our exits and our entrances in our assessment of the homes. So right now during the pandemic, you may not have to be doing your home visits. However, I know that a lot of social workers are essential workers and still continue to do home visits, especially for our vulnerable populations that need extra services, that are either severely mentally ill or for elderly. And so there are still a lot of social workers out there that are doing field and home visits. Anyway, I hope that you found this video helpful. Please leave a comment down below to let me know and let other fellow social workers and mental health providers know what type of home visits you have done and what your experiences have been like. As always, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. And if there's a certain video that you're interested in, then feel free to comment that below so I can work on that. Managing mental health matters.